Now then, Carl Froch and George Groves are back on the talkSPORT boxing YouTube channel as the verdict returns. The boys review Eubank Jr.'s 10th round stoppage win over Liam Smith, and Froch tells Smith his career is over after that hugely disappointing defeat.
Taking 3 stone off, 42 pounds in weight, being that drained. Well, not only is it dangerous, but it's also kind of conning the fans and cheating the fans and the public that you're there to put a performance on when actually you've got no chance of putting a performance on. It just wasn't good enough from Liam Smith. I was disappointed with his performance, badly.
To be honest, Carl, this felt like what I thought the first fight was going to be. There was no urgency from him throughout the entire fight. There was no change of tack. You're wondering, is he building into the fight? Is he starting slow? Is he trying to set traps to almost survival, really?
For me, his career is over. That's my opinion. I don't think there needs to be a third fight.
Well, that's the latest episode of The Verdict with Carl Froch and George Groves. These two sounding great foes, but now great chums.
Indeed
it seems. It's out now on the talkSPORT boxing YouTube channel. Do you think Froch is right? Hugely let down by it, and the fact that Liam Smith didn't really turn up?
Well, you could make the same argument for the first fight about Chris Eubank Jr. Fans could have been cheated by the fact that he wasn't at his best for that particular fight. I mean, I think there is a case for a third fight, because if you're going to give Chris Eubank Jr. all the excuses that was given in the first fight, which was weight cut, referee, elbow in the face, whatever else, then why doesn't that same thing price into the Liam Smith that went in that ring that had been injured twice before that fight, that had a weight cut, and clearly wasn't the same Liam Smith? Clearly doesn't diminish the performance that Chris Eubank Jr. put on into that in that fight. But if Chris Eubank Jr. is 30% better, which he was, and Liam Smith is 30% worse, you've got a vast gap. And if we're talking about the nature of this event, then he's had one night, and so has Chris Eubank Jr. It's 1-1, nothing was determined.
You're talking about a boxer going in there that's not given his best and was a mile off it.
Well, I think he gave his best, but he was just miles off.
Yeah. Do you think there's an onus on his backups, trainers and whatever, to say, look, he's just not at it? They know what's gone on in the lead up to the fight. Or do you think, look, we've taken the fight, we've got to take it?
But I think there's a raft of things. If you listen to the explanations, I think none of them are particularly satisfying.
You spoke to Paul Smith afterwards,
I did,
you?
yeah.
What did he say?
A variety of things. Some of them I'm not going to repeat because it was something he said to me privately. But they weren't. The fact is that I said, not as loud as I should have done, why is no one talking about Liam Smith and the fact he's been injured twice before this fight as a factor? Because everybody, all the voices, including Carl and including Johnny Nelson, all the boxing voices were saying Liam Smith walks through this fight. I didn't. I said I think if Eubank shows what Eubank is about, I think he'll win this fight, but I think it's going to be an interesting one to see if Eubank's got the resistance, and so it proved. And as the week went on, I was thinking, listening to Johnny Nelson, listening to all these so-called guys that have, not so-called guys that have thought, well, they must know better than me, so you start to change your mind. But the point is that I wonder why Liam was walking around 42 pounds heavier. I don't know why Liam would be 5'9", 14 and a half stone, because that to me seems like quite big. But the point is that he went into this fight, they believed that they could win it, but he had nothing. I mean, it was, as good as Chris Eubank Jr. was, Liam Smith had nothing.
No.
He had nothing not even from the second round. He had nothing. There was nothing there.
Have a listen to this morning, and we know we like Conor Benn, right? We're agreed on that.
I do. Yeah,
Conor
I like Conor,
he's been through a lot. So this morning I thought, I wonder if Conor will give us his view of it. And Conor Benn, to his credit, did. I spoke to him a short time ago and asked him what he thought of events in Manchester with Eubank Jr. and Smith.
Smith looked injured. He looked like a wounded soldier in there. It'd be interesting to find out what actually went on. Eubank done what he should have done first time round, but Smith looked injured from the get-go. He didn't look at the races. And if it took Eubank 10 rounds to get the job done, it ain't really that impressive. Considering Smith only threw 33 punches in the whole fight, or landed anyway.
Conor, did you expect it to be so one-sided? I hear what you're saying about the possible injury to Smith, but it was so one-sided, wasn't it?
It's hard to take anything away from it. It was clear to see, based on Smith's whole career that, he wasn't at the races and, he may have picked up an injury in the fight. So, I don't take much away from that. It was like Eubank was hitting a punch bag in there. So, there weren't no counters. There weren't no, evading the shots, no counter shots. So for me, it was, he'd done what he needed to do. But it still took him 10 rounds to get a 1-5-4 fighter out of there.
What was the atmosphere like, Conor? It seemed to be special again.
It was great. It was a great atmosphere. I went there because it's great for boxing. Yeah, it was an unbelievable turnout. I mean, it was 50-50 splits. You know, Eubank's obviously got the boos and Smith got the cheers, but by the end of it, Eubank got a few cheers. I was quite surprised.
Conor, it begs the question this Monday morning, who's next for you? Would you want Eubank Jr.?
Oh, 100%. I don't believe I need a warm-up fight. You know, given everything that's going on and has gone on, I'd like to do it here for the supporters, for everyone who's continued to support me through this period. You know, a December massive showdown would, you know, be a treat for the fans.
So we're going to see you again soon?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. So, Simon, when you hear that from Conor this morning, yeah, for sure, 100%, I want Eubank Jr. What do you think fight fans would want more? Eubank Benn or Eubank Smith 3?
I think a lot of fight fans would like to see Conor Benn clear his name. I think that's what a lot of fight fans would do, rather than use a technicality to get out from underneath. I don't want Conor Benn in this situation, but I don't want this preposterous assertion that he's cleared himself, because he hasn't. And the idea, I made observations about Chris Eubank Jr. A lot of people are saying to me, is he a charlatan now? Well, what I was incredibly impressed by his performance, because you've got to give it to Chris Eubank Jr. He was on a different level to the fighter that went in there in the first fight. But then Liam Smith was on a completely different level as well. So you're not necessarily comparing like with like. And if he's not a charlatan, I don't understand the logic of immediately after the fight calling out Conor Benn, calling out Kell Brook, and calling out Gennady Golovkin. None of these are world title fights. None of these are progressing his career. All of these are money fights. Conor Benn seems to have gone up to mythical status. Conor Benn's like the archetypal footballer that's been injured for 6 months and gets better and better and better the more he's not playing. Conor Benn, with due respect to Conor, was on a very decent career path, was beating a few names that were on their way down. But Conor Benn is no mythical beast that everyone's got to fight. He's a fighter with some notoriety right now. And Kell Brook hasn't fought for 2 years, and 6 months ago, Kell was in the pits of despair over situations in his personal life with drugs. Neither of these fighters are fighters that Chris Eubank Jr. should be calling out. He should be saying, I tell you what, I've just shown the world I can fight it this way. I tell you what I'll do, because I want to win a world title, because I'm about world titles. I'll call out Jamal Charlo for the light middleweight title. Well, because that's a legitimate fight, because I want to be I want to get paid. And this is the thing that I have a problem with Chris Eubank Jr. over. The performance, brilliant on Saturday, did the job. Liam Smith, disappointing. There should be a third fight. If there's an appetite for a third fight...
Do you think is there an appetite?
Depends.
After what we saw on Saturday night?
After what we saw...
Fury Wilder, yes, and we saw
After what we saw in the first fight, was there an appetite for the second fight? Because Eubank sold it on the basis of what he could be, what he should be, and what he would be. Okay, he was. Liam Smith took a fight, and he says, and I don't think it's a great reason, I don't know why they didn't bomb the fight out. The only person that wanted the fight initially was Eubank. He had the rematch clause. I don't know why Liam Smith didn't turn around and say, I'm not ready. He said, I'm not. The reason why he said I had to make the fight on September the 2nd, even though I wasn't physically fit enough to do it, was because Chris Eubank would go somewhere else. Well, let him go somewhere else then. Where was he going to go? Fight Conor Benn? Conor Benn might have an American licence, and he might get permission to fight in his country. Likelihood he probably won't, because the British Boxing Board of Control have rejected and appealed against the initial decision. I think there's lots of questions that should be asked of where Chris Eubank Jr. is going next, but his performance on Saturday was very, very good against a very, very poor Liam Smith.
He says he would fight Golovkin. He would love to fight Golovkin now.
But Golovkin got a world title. What's he fighting Golovkin for? I thought he wanted world titles because he wants to get paid. I don't blame them.
Yeah, but having said that, you pay money to see that.
Sure.
Eubank Jr. against Golovkin.
But why don't you call out Charlo? He's a world title holder. My issue with Chris has always been, which is where the charlatan comment came from, was you keep on telling people what you want to do. You keep on telling people about how much money you've made and how much your house in Las Vegas is. What about the world titles that you say you're going to go after? And now you're calling out Conor Benn, and you're calling out Kell Brook, and you're calling out a 41-year-old Gennady Golovkin that's not even a world title holder anymore. Why? Because you want to get paid. And that's what it's about. Fantastic. But it's not quite the same thing as being about winning world titles, is it?
Don't all boxers want to get paid?
Well, what can't
That's
you
why
do?
Fury's going in with a man from the MMA.
He'll get paid against Jamal Charlo, who's the undisputed, or certainly a 2 or 3 belt holder of the light middleweight division. Why are they fighting him? He just proved he can fight at 160. He looked brilliant. He looked absolutely in condition. He's clearly listening. He's got better trainers around. All the things that his dad was worried about, Chris is clearly doing now. And you saw it in a performance against Liam Smith. So why aren't we talking about something better than that?
Okay.